Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Welcome to The Point. I am sitting here at my desk here at the church in our staff offices, and I hope you're doing good. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. If you can, go ahead and smash that share button and share this to your friends and your social media. If you're watching this in the church app, you should see a share button where you can click the share button and it'll share it to your social media. And I think we might have had some trouble trying to get this to post to Facebook. So if somebody can, share this, either the YouTube link or the link on the app on the website to watch it, so folks on Facebook can go back and watch this later. I think we had a little bit of technical difficulty, but thank you so much for hanging out with me. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. Hope you're 7 days of talking positive, not speaking negative words is going good. Remember from the message Sunday, we talked about taming the tongue from James 3, and I challenged you to speak words of affection, words of affirmation, words of faith, words of healing, words of praise to God. And so I hope that's going good for you. And I'm telling you, it's been, even for me this week, I've really committed to it myself. And man, it's just amazing. I've already I feel better. Just seeing God even move in some situations and, personally. And so I hope you've been doing that. I know it'll help you. I'm telling you, life and death is truly in the power of the tongue. And so we ought to take inventory of what we're speaking. But I wanted to go ahead and I want us to go ahead and get started on today's study on The Point. We've been going through the book of James, and we're almost to the finish line. As a matter of fact, this upcoming Sunday and next Wednesday, we will finish the book of James. And so I've been excited about this. I appreciate your positive feedback and just telling how it's helped you personally, and just even for those that have been saved for a long time. Some have said to me, Pastor, it's just been a good refresher. And so I appreciate that. But I want us to continue in James chapter 3. And I want us to pick up in verse number 13. I want us to look at verses 13 through 18, where really James is talking about wisdom, and really he's talking about two kinds of wisdom. And he begins by asking this question in verse 13. He says, "Who is wise and understanding among you?" And notice this. He goes on and he says, "Whoever is wise," he says, "let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in humility that come from wisdom." The Hebrew word for wisdom literally means skill in living. And so what I want you to understand is that whenever you receive Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and you begin to follow the Word of God, and you begin to consume the Word and begin to live your life according to this Word, because remember, when you become a follower of Jesus, it's no longer you calling the shots for your life. It's no longer about what you want, but when you receive Jesus Christ, you crucify your flesh. You lay down your will, your wants, and you no longer are the Lord of your life, but you have placed Jesus on the throne of your heart, and He calls the shots. He determines and dictates how you live and conduct yourself. And listen, when God begins to do that, He gives you wisdom. And James says, you show your wisdom, you show that you have this wisdom from God by living a good life and by doing deeds that are done in humility. And so I want to just share with you a few things I've learned about this wisdom and wise people. I even this week, I met with someone in our church who is he's an older man in our church. I consider him someone that has a lot of wisdom. Because even during the pandemic and even before, God really began to challenge me on a personal level to say, Justin, I want you to surround yourself with some wise people that you can learn from. If you're the smartest person in your circle, then you've went as far as you can ever go in life. You don't never want to be the smartest, the brightest in your circle. Your circle should be bigger than you. You should surround yourself with people who are wiser than you, that you can glean from, because what your mama said was true. Who you hang out with is who you'll become. And I want to hang out with wise people. Why? Because I want to be wise. I hang out with successful people because why? I want to be successful. I hang out with people who are hungry for God and pursuing Him passionately. Why? Because I want to pursue God passionately. And who you surround yourself with, who you hang out with, is a big indicator of who you're going to become, because your life is going to move in the direction not only of your words, but the people you associate with is going to determine a lot of how you're going to live and conduct your life. And so I really have begun praying, and I've been asking wise men. I've been going to some older men and saying, hey, I need you, wise men. I need you in my life. I need you to speak into me. I need you to pour into me. I need you to just we fellowship and we talk, and I've been doing that, and I've learned some things from wise people. I've noticed some things that wise people have that the Bible wants us to have. And James is writing this in James 3, and he's challenging us all to live a wise life, to live a life full of wisdom. And he goes on and he shares what this wisdom does in your life and in my life. He said in verse 17, he says, wisdom that comes from heaven, it is pure, it is peace-loving, it is considerate, it is submissive, it is full of mercy, it has good fruit, it's impartial, and it's sincere. He said, peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Notice this. He says there's some things about wisdom. When you receive the wisdom from heaven, when you become wise according to the Scriptures, there are some things that you're going to have on display in your life. And just real quickly during this lunch hour before we receive lunch, I want to share with you some things that wise people have. These are things that we should strive for in our lives in following Jesus. Here's the first thing that wise people have. It's in verse 17 of James 3. He says, but wisdom comes from heaven is first of all pure. Catch that. The wisdom that comes from heaven is pure. It's all pure. Titus 1:15 in the New Living Translation said, everything is pure to those whose hearts are pure. But nothing is pure to those who are corrupt and unbelieving, because their minds and their consciences are corrupted. Matthew 5:18, Jesus said, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. The first thing I've learned about people who are wise, and what James is telling us here about wisdom, is the wise have a pure heart. The wise are not looking to be corrupted by living a life full of corruption and sin, but wise people are shunning sin, and they are looking to live a life that is pure. They are looking to live a life that is not tainted by sin and by lust, but they are living their life pure and holy so that they can see God move in their life. So here's the question you got to ask yourself. If you want to have a pure heart, if you want to be a wise person who has a pure heart, this is the question you got to ask yourself. How much of the world am I going to allow in my life? If you're going to be a person full of wisdom, if you're going to be a person that has heaven's wisdom, let me say that, because the world has its own idea of wisdom, but if you're going to live a life full of heaven's wisdom, the question you got to ask yourself is, how much of the world am I going to have in my life? How much of the world am I going to let call the shots in my life? How much of the world am I going to let dictate how I have my marriage, my relationship with my children, what I look at, what I listen to, how I talk, how I handle my money, where we go, where we don't go? And here's what I've learned. People who are wise and have heaven's wisdom, they are trying to have as less of the world as they can, and they're trying to fill their life with the things of God. Wise people, people who have the wisdom of heaven, they're constantly in this Bible, and they're trying to live their life according to this book. Listen, I'm not trying to be popular in the earth. I'm not trying to live my life the way the world says to live their life. Why? Because I'm after heaven's wisdom. And sometimes heaven's wisdom and the way the world thinks, they are diametrically opposed to each other. They are totally opposite. They are like, north and south. They're totally different directions. And you've got to make up your mind as a believer, how much of the world am I going to allow in my life? Because if you're going to have a pure heart, if you're going to live a life full of heaven's wisdom and have a pure heart and a pure mind, you can't allow the world to rule and dictate your life. You got to have less of the world and more of God, more of the Spirit, more of the Word. And so the first thing I've learned about people who are wise, number one, they have a pure heart. They're not motivated by selfish, uh, motivations. They're not, tainted by sin, or they're not moved by jealousies, or things such as that. They have a pure heart. They just want to see God move. They just want to live their life to the best of their ability, doing the way things that God said. I apologize that I'm at the desk here at the church, and the phones are ringing, so I apologize for that. Here's the second thing I've learned about wisdom. People who have wisdom from above, heaven's wisdom. The second thing I've learned is that they love peace. The wise love peace. Notice this in James 3:17. He said the wise. He said this wisdom that comes from heaven, not only is it pure, but it's peace loving. It's peace loving. The wise love peace. In other words, conflict cannot continue without my participation. The conflict is only going to continue if I choose to participate in the conflict. Come on, somebody. I'm about to give my own self an offering. Conflict will only continue if you continue to feed the conflict. Come on now. And wise people love peace. Wise people would rather have peace over being right. Come on now. Oh man, I wish somebody would. Oh man, my have mercy. Proverbs 20 verse 3 said it like this. It said, it's a mark of good character to avert quarrels, but fools love to pick fights. Whoop. Fools love to pick fights, but somebody with good character, they avert quarrels. They're trying to avert the fights. And I've learned that people full of wisdom, they're not motivated. When I was younger, when I was new in the faith, and even outside the faith, I wanted to be right. I wanted to prove my point. And now that I'm living longer and following God and really just trying to apply the principles of the Word and try to live a life full of wisdom, wise people love peace. And wise people would rather have peace than to be right. And, I've just made up my mind, I'm not going to feed the fight. I'm not going to feed the fight. I'm going to pursue peace. And that conflict will not continue if I don't participate in it. And so he said wisdom, it's peace loving. It loves peace. And the wise love peace. And I'm not saying there's not times that you don't have to confront things, and you don't have to, maybe call some things out in love. But number one, your primary goal, your primary target when you're living a life full of wisdom is you're seeking peace. Peace in the home. Peace in your relationships. There's some people that are just so toxic that it's like they get a high off of fighting. They just want to fight and just and just have conflicts. I don't hang around them kind of people. I'm not that kind of a person. I don't like drama. I don't like fights. I don't like conflict. I know sometimes conflict is necessary. In your home with your spouse, or with your children. Sometimes that's going to arise. But listen, the conflict should not always be perpetual and continue on and on and on, because you should be seeking peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall see God. We should be seeking peace above everything. And the wise, not only do they have a pure heart, but secondly, they love peace. Here's the third thing I've learned about people who are wise. They not only do they love peace, but the wise are full of consideration. In other words, they're considerate. Romans 15 verses 1 through 3 said, we who are strong must be considerate of those who are sensitive about things like this. We must not just please ourselves. We should help others do what is right and build them up. But catch this, he said we must be considerate. We should be considerate. I've learned something about wise people. They don't act quickly, and they don't speak quickly. They're considerate. They simmer on things. They take time to pray. They take time to really think about the whole thing circumspectly. Do you hear what I'm saying? They don't just think about the here and the now, but they think circumspectly in a full circle. They think from beginning to end and end to beginning and everything in between. That's what I love about God. That's what I love about Jesus. He said, I'm Alpha and Omega. I'm the beginning and the end at the same time. Not only is he just the beginning, but he's also the end. He's the end and the beginning and everything in between all at the same time. God thinks circumspectly. God thinks he thinks about the end of a thing, and before it's established. And that's what wise people do. Wise people don't just think about the here and the now, but they think about, they give things consideration and think about it in full spectrum. How's this going to affect me, 10 years from now, 5 years from now? You see, that's what sin does. Sin gets you just thinking about the here and the now. It doesn't show you the consequence. It doesn't show you, it just shows you, hey, I'm going to please your flesh right now. This is going to make you feel good right now. This is going to make you happy right now. But it doesn't show you how it's going to damage you 6 months from now, a year from now, 12 years from now. Come on, somebody. Sin doesn't do that. Sin just shows you the fun side, but it doesn't show you the broken, busted up relationship. It doesn't show you how it's going to hurt your family members. It doesn't show you how you're going to get hurt in that car wreck because you drove home drunk. It doesn't show you all of that. But the people who are wise, people who have heaven's wisdom, hear me, y'all, they consider things. I was thinking about this even right now. We faced the pandemic, and I'm not bragging. I want to give you an example to show you how wisdom works. We have the pandemic we just went through, COVID-19, and we went through a period where churches everywhere were closed for several weeks. But now, even right now, churches are not back at the capacity they were. They say that most churches are only around 30% of their in-person attendance before COVID. Here at Turning Point, we're seeing about 65% of our in-person attendance is what it was before COVID. And so churches are, awaiting and trying to, get people back in the house of God. But hear me now. Before COVID hit, there was several years ago, we were running out of room in our sanctuary. And we could only seat like 350. And I remember we were almost, if you've been with me for a while, we were almost going to step out and build like $1 million, $2 million sanctuary because we needed new seats. But we prayed. I prayed. Thought about that thing. One of my sayings, I'll stay here around my staff, is sometimes they'll come to me for, they'll need a decision from me, or they'll, need some input from me. And sometimes my responses are immediate. It's right there. Yes, no, this is what I want. This is what we need, But sometimes my response will be to them, let me simmer on it. What am I saying? Let me consider it. Let me take some time and pray and give this thing some thought circumspectly. Let me think about this from beginning to end and end to beginning. And not only is how this going to affect the here and the now, how's this going to affect from 6 months from now, a year from now? Because the wise consider. They have consideration. We could have stepped out and built that $1 million, $2 million, but I just didn't have peace about it, and we really began to just have wisdom and just begin to just think about this thing. And anyways, if you were here, we did not build the new sanctuary. We ended up remodeling the space that we have. We put in fixed seating and almost doubled our seating capacity with the fixed seats. And instead of spending, $1 million or $2 million, we only ended up, spending, it was $180,000 for the seats, if I remember right, $180,000 to $200,000. And hey, that's a whole lot better to be at $180,000 versus $1 million or $2 million. And I had no idea we'd be facing this, a year or two down the road with, the pandemic. And so, consideration. The wise are considerate. I'm not just talking about sin, but you need to be given consideration to 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I'm going to be meeting with my staff in a few weeks, and we're going to be talking about the future. We're going to be setting goals and, setting the vision for this house, for the ministry. And what are we doing? We're giving consideration. We're not just thinking about the here and the now on this upcoming Sunday. We're thinking 20 Sundays from now, 50 Sundays from now. I know sometimes my preaching style can come across maybe spontaneous, but I want you to know, for the most part, I try to give consideration. I didn't just jump up and preach the book of James. It was something I really considered and prayed about and felt, impressed and led by the Spirit of God. And so the wise give consideration. And just on a practical level, step outside of church or the Spirit. You should be giving consideration to your retirement. Hear me. I know I speak, to folks of all ages and all stages of life. If you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, you need to be giving consideration to your retirement. Are you preparing for retirement? Are you preparing for your child's, education? Are you preparing for, are you prepared for, if, God forbid something happened to you physically or in your health? You should be giving consideration. The Bible said the wise are considerate. And also, don't be so quick to decisions. It's okay to take some time to think. I'll tell people sometimes. Sometimes they'll want to answer right then, or sometimes I wish I could give answers right then. But most of the time, I am a person who simmers, and that's for a lot of areas of my life. Why? Because the Bible said the wise are considerate. That's wisdom. That's not being lazy. That's wisdom. The wise are considerate. And here's the last thing I want to share with you about the wise. Verse 18, he said, "But the wisdom that comes from heaven, it is full of mercy and good fruit." I love this. Here's the last thing I've learned about wise people. They minimize the mistakes of others. They minimize the mistakes of others. They're people that are full of mercy. They're full of people they're full of grace. And I'd rather stand before God having loved too much than having judged too harshly. And I've learned something about wise people. Not saying that there's going to be times you got to call things out in love, according to the scriptures, or whatever you're having to deal with as a parent. There are those moments. But we should not maximize people's mistakes. We should maximize their potential. And we should offer grace and mercy to those when they do mess up. And so, sometimes I have to ask myself the question, what do I need to stop bringing up? I remember early on in my marriage, Cole and I, when we first got married, we did not know how to communicate well to each other. And that's, something hard, especially in young married couples, as you're having to learn how to live together. You used to do things this way, and, she did things this way, and now you're, bringing two different lifestyles together. The two are becoming one. And I've learned most of the time that young married couples, they don't know how to communicate. And if you don't conquer this, you can still be married 40 years and not know how to communicate one to another. And you'll be bringing things up from 20 years ago that happened, and the reason you're doing that is you're not acting in wisdom. Wise people minimize the mistakes of others, and wise people don't constantly bring up the faults and tear each other down. They speak to potential. They speak to what can happen. They speak to where we are going. And that's one thing I've really learned in trying to become an even wise leader. Wise people don't focus on what can't happen. Wise people don't even necessarily stay focused on